synths are often overlooked in metal. Many of you want the synth layers to change the character of the section. However, not so many of you know how to perform such parts and find the suitable sounds. I would like to follow up on my previous video and show you how you can use synths, pads and drones to achieve a certain atmosphere. We'll be using Thy Art is Murder, free multitracks by tight/sound.site once again. Hey, I'm Dr. Mark Trubetskov, a mad scientist of metal, and I'm here to bring valuable information on metal production and mixing. Like and subscribe to never miss it out. Let's go! There are multiple ways to change the atmosphere of the section. Depending on its intensity and placement in the song, you may consider the following sound. Thick low drones for extra darkness, tension, and an ability to build the section up. Pads and strings for tension and color, yet a different tension. The dissonant tone of pads and strings makes your listener uncomfortable in a different way. Analog leads for extra aggression, vibrancy, and emphasis. Alright, cool. So this video is somewhat more improvised because, in my opinion, creating synth sounds is basically a creative process, and you have to trust your gut, you have to follow the song, you have to really lock onto the parts that are being performed and create something that enhances the feel that you are experiencing in the moment when listening to this section of the track. So I would like to start with the drone, and then I want to introduce some odd strings that create tension. Then I want to harmonize with those strings and add a different voicing to them. Then there is an Inferno section where I have to use a very explosive and aggressive synth, followed by some build in which I introduce a very unorthodox sound as well. Little bit of a disclaimer here. Yes, we will be using this synth, which is Prophet synth, but not because it sounds more superior to software or anything like that. It's just easier for me to use, and I can use it as a MIDI keyboard as well. You can use any software or hardware synth of anything, and I would actually recommend you to explore some Contact libraries, as they have really amazing sounds for you to utilize in modern metal. Let's get on to it. Okay, so here is one of the sounds that you may use if you want to create an empty, hollow sounding atmosphere that creates tension, feeling that something weird and bad is approaching, a premonition. Here we go. And then you can modulate that. It sounds really odd and weird on its own, but let's see how it fits in the mix here. In order to achieve such sound, all you have to do is use noise oscillators and then just filter that noise through a filter with cutoff. That's all. That's super simple. So you just turn off all the oscillators but noise and go from there. cool, but the last bit, which I will just cut. And I obviously bring it down and put some effects, say Valhalla delay. Make it really quiet. Okay, let's consider the next section, the actual build up into the main riff. And if you want to enhance the explosive dynamics, enhance the tension, and make the main riff really hit hard, you may consider subtle synths in this section. So let's check out what we can do. Here is the start of the song. Real heavy already. And this section, in my opinion, consists of two main elements. The rhythmic element, the drums and the guitars, which is complex enough and does not quite require any emphasis with the synth, as otherwise it may just sound messy and too overcomplicated. And then there is another element, the melodic element, the dissonant lead guitar, which sounds so tense and aggressive already. And you can try enhancing something like that in your songs with a subtle synth underneath it. Let's try and see what I'm talking about here. So starting off with a drone sound, something that sounds super dark and aggressive is a good starting point. Something like this. Really tense. And then you can follow the melodic line and modulate it or pitch bend it, which I would suggest in this instance. Detuning a synth can create a very, very, very uncomfortable atmosphere for your listener. Let's try recording that in. That's layer 1. And then here's the second layer, which is a bit more unorthodox. Another option to add when you want to build tension is a pulsating drone or pulsating rhythmic sound. Something like this. To achieve such a sound, it is pretty simple. You have to modulate some parameters. In this case, pan is modulated with an LFO. However, another way to achieve a rhythmic sound is just to use arpeggiator. Super simple. You just select arpeggiator in your synth, be it software or hardware, and select maybe 4th note, maybe triplets, or maybe 8th notes. And that gives you moving sound. The beauty of it is, it creates an effect that something is approaching at your listener. So let me try recording this in as well and seeing how that sounds. Cool. Of note, this particular sound is not synced up into the note. It actually goes slightly slower, maybe into the triplets, quarter triplet notes, and that creates a very, very disturbing sound. Coming to the main section now. A good idea is to try enhancing the main melodic element once again, but go into a different register and different voicing, sitting higher, because that adds a contrast between your low and dark builds into the high and full sounding pads or strings that emphasize the melody. So here's what I suggest for you to try. It's pretty simple, and at the moment we have two sounds playing. One is my synth and another one is a contact library, but anything ambient, a pad, some strings, will do well. You don't need to overcomplicate this. And you can put some reverb afterwards so that it sounds really distant and washed out. Doesn't matter as much. This element is not supposed to be up front, rather than supporting a melodic element. Let's check it out. Off note, see how we've added a dissonant note here instead of just octaves. These subtle voicings can make a lot of difference in how the section feels. Let's have a listen to see how that actually works. To me it sounds sick. Next up, we have Inferno Section. Pretty important to consider. Check this section out. Cool, right? Amazing riff. And your first call in this instance may be just grab MIDI and use a fat synth to layer with the guitar. You may do that, but consider doing something that works in conjunction with the guitar rather than completely repeats it, because that would add breadth and dynamics to the guitar lines. Let me explain you what I mean. So grab an analog synth lead that sounds super fat. You can find this in any instrument if you search long enough. Let me record it and then I'll explain what I mean. See how I left a gap when the fast riffs come in? And that's for the reason for that riff to shine and being brought forward rather than being overshadowed by those synths. And the rest of the synths just add Inferno sort of burning hell atmosphere. Looking at the next section where we have the heavy riff, you obviously can follow the traditional method and just follow the guitar with your synth in MIDI. Something like this. This is straightforward and this is what my previous video was about. But let's check out if we can bring some more and add some extra fun atmosphere to this part. Check this one out. You may be inspired by some symphonic deathcore which was around lately with some human voices doing and I was inspired for this part too, but there is a way to introduce it in a slightly more unorthodox way, and that's what I tried to do. Instead of this part being opened, these are synthesized human voices in a filtered form, so we don't have much of a top end or a bottom end, it's all mid-range. And then you can follow the guitar line once again, but just in a couple of spots to put salt and pepper onto that lead and bring some elements forward and some not so much. As this video is getting quite long and I don't want to take up too much of your time, I hope that these demonstrations and these examples may have inspired you to experiment with synths in a slightly more unorthodox way and in a more musical way, so that when you create synths next time, don't just throw in an octave or a power chord. Consider the elements of the track, consider the riffs, and see what musically makes sense to follow and why. Try to read the mood of the section, try to read its dynamics and try to read what it's about, and then go for a certain sound, whether it is a drone, a pad, a fat synths, or dissonant strings as demonstrated here. I hope that you find it useful. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, rock on!